Um, Thank you, Nelly, for agreeing to give us this talk that is called Mineral Magnetic Tracts on Fire Archaeological Record, Environmental and Technological Sensitivity. So the floor is yours, Nelly, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank to Anita for inviting me to give this talk on the MagNetZ seminar. And then I would like to thank all my colleagues from the Palaeomagnetic Laboratory in Sofia who are collaborating with me on the topics which I will speak about. So shortly, the content of my talk will include a short introduction, and then the first part of the case studies which I will present is devoted to mineral magnetism applied to archaeological sites of ancient ore mining. The second part will deal with magnetic properties of burnt Neolithic settlements, which are found on the Balkan Peninsula. And the last part will deal with studies of archaeological ceramics using mineral and rock magnetic methods. So it's well known that in archaeomagnetism, rock and mineral investigations are used usually for testing the material suitability to record the direction and paleointensity of the geomagnetic field in order to retrieve reliable records of the secular variations of the geomagnetic field in the archaeological past, and also for formulating criteria for preselection of materials to be used for paleointensity experiments, because it's well known that paleointensity experiment is very time and labor consuming, and moreover, in many cases, the success rate is quite low. However, archaeological sites provide other valuable opportunities to study the environmental context of human occupation of the sites. And in most cases, the main remains at the archaeological sites consist of pottery, ceramics, remains of houses burnt or not burnt, and from ancient ore mining, different materials produced during mining. Many of these remains are related to burning processes, and they in turn depend on the firing conditions. And these are related to the technology of the pottery production, also to house building, occupation and life, or to the ore extraction chain operatoire. So learning about these firing conditions, we can get information about the technological advancement in pottery production. We can judge about some climate conditions during the archaeological past, or to get information about the mining technology development. So these are the main environmental implications which I would like to talk about further. The controlled use of fire by humans is more difficult to detect in nomadic societies in the more ancient times, where the open fireplaces are only occasionally used, and they are very often destroyed, and very little or no remains can be found. But in progressively less nomadic lifestyle, larger population is sitting on the same site, and intensive site use results in much more remains of different anthropogenic structures like fireplaces, hearths associated with burnt bones, sediments, the presence of wood ash in caves, for example, or macroscopic charcoal, and so on. So I will now shortly mention the high temperature pathways of transformation of different iron oxyhydroxides, because these reactions play important role in understanding the magnetic properties which we measure in materials from archaeological sites. It's well known that most iron hydroxides transform to a final product hematite during heating. But in the presence of organic matter, which creates reducing conditions, the pathway can go through intermediate formation of strongly magnetic phase maghemite, which further transforms again to hematite. And there are many studies demonstrating these transformation pathways. Maghemite is also thermally unstable mineral, and it also converts to hematite, but it's established that the magnetic properties are grain size dependent. And one interesting pathway is the transformation of superparamagnetic nanoparticles of maghemite, which can transform in a pathway through formation of specific polymorph of hematite, the so-called epsilon form, which has a very interesting magnetic properties, but I will not speak on this topic now. And magnetite again converts to hematite upon heating in air, starting with surface oxidation to form a maghemite shell, while in reducing conditions, it converts to metallic iron. So let's start with the case studies of ancient ore mining sites. The first site is the late Bronze Age open pit gold mine. It's called Adatepe and is located in the eastern Rhodops, in the southern part of Bulgaria. And according to the archaeological information, the mining started at about 15th century BC and lasted about 2 centuries. And this is the oldest known open gold mine pit in Europe. And remains of the ancient mining are spread over a wide area on the hill. And the waste material from the ancient mining is stored in numerous rock heaps spread across the area of the hill where the mine is situated. So we collected a quite large collection of samples taken from different archaeological structures like waste heaps, places connected with the primary mining activities, some cultural layers, destructions from houses from the settlement, which also existed on the top of the hill. And working on this collection, we obtained a number of magnetic parameters, including magnetic susceptibility, but also laboratory remanences like anhysteretic and isothermal. And we also constructed different grain size proxy ratios. Taking this large data set, we carried out a cluster analysis to obtain the best number of clusters which can describe the variations in the data set. So we defined 4 clusters, and here on the graphs on the down right corner, you can see the distribution of different magnetic parameters according to the cluster number. And it can be seen that each parameter describes in a different way the properties of the respective cluster. So as a result of integrated analysis of these cluster characteristics, we assigned members of cluster number 1 to archaeological fired structures. In cluster number 2, we defined host rocks properties. In cluster number 3, mine heaps from processed fired rocks. And in the 4th cluster, we assigned natural soils. Here on this map, you can see the distribution of the cluster members on the archaeological sites with denoted areas of mine activities in orange and waste heaps from the mine reworking. So this approach provided detailed information about the overall organization and characteristics of the technological chain for the exploitation of the ore deposits during the late Bronze Age. Another example is coming from a Neolithic copper mining site. It's called Ibunar, and this site was discovered in early 20th century. And the mine was part of a broader early Balkan metallurgical network, which supplied raw material for tools and ornaments during the Neolithic time. And this site is not just a site of surface use of copper, but it represents a large-scale organized exploitation of this ore. And the copper deposit is a result of hydrothermal mineralization, which is found in ore veins in almost vertical subparallel layers of limestone, marls, and dolomite. And archaeological and geochemical research suggests that the total amount of copper which was extracted from the site in Neolithic ranged between 2 to 3,000 tons, which may yield around 500 tons of copper. And here on the photos, you can see the outcrops of rocks on the surface, some ore mineralization on the rocks found in the mining area. And in this area, archaeologists found many andesitic hammers, which were used for the extraction of the ore. So this is still ongoing research. So we started with field measurements along vertical soil profiles at the site. And these first examples, which you see, are susceptibility variations in infill profiles at the mining area where the ore was extracted. So susceptibility variations are not systematic, they just reflect the deposition of the soil infill after the abandonment of the mine. And of course, limestones and marls show very low magnetic susceptibility in contrast to andesitic hammers, which display much stronger magnetic susceptibility. So these initial measurements showed that strong positive magnetic anomalies are probably related to the presence of ancient mining tools at the site. The next susceptibility profiles we measured at the top of the hill where the ancient miners were living during the mining operations. And at these sites, we obtained much stronger enhancement in magnetic susceptibility at the middle part of the profiles, which was a result from different additions of anthropogenic materials into the soil. And these materials were mainly ceramics, burnt plaster, or daub. And uppermost, about 20 centimeters of the profiles are relatively weakly magnetic, and we interpret this as reflecting the natural soil formation after abandonment of the mining site. So from this site, we also collected different materials from the rocks, from limestones, near the ore veins or containing some ore minerals. We have sample from the pure copper ore, from soils, from ceramics and daub. So we plan to do detailed magnetic investigation of this collection in order to get more detailed information in a similar way to the gold mine site, which I showed as a first example. From the soil sample, which was taken from the ore production site, which showed very high magnetic susceptibility but low frequency dependence, we did a magnetic extraction, and as a first result, we got the presence of metallic particles of spherical shape, which are probably produced during or processing with the use of fire. So, in my opinion, the environmental magnetism applied to these environments of ancient mining sites can provide very nice information. Now I will switch to rock magnetic research in burnt Neolithic settlements. This is a very interesting phenomenon called burnt house horizon, which is found in Southeast Europe during the Neolithic time. And on this map, you can see the cultures which are characterized with such massive burning of houses of the settlement. And this topic is also of big interest in experimental archaeology, and which many people try to reproduce the extreme burning which was observed in these Neolithic settlements, but still not fully understood. So we studied a Neolithic site called Mursalevu de Veboas, and this site was a very large area excavated, and about 60 houses were found. All of them were burnt, and here you can see how the different burnt remains look like. They were of very contrasting colors and appearance. And in some sites, we also have such kind of melted material. So we did detailed magnetic characterization of the different materials from many houses. And we obtained a clear relation of magnetic properties to the prevailing color of the materials, with the presence of stable magnetite in purple and yellow materials, while orange, red materials, of course, contained also hematite. For the collection, we also retrieved the ancient firing temperature using the reheating method. And this is the summary of the data we obtained. Here again, you can see that the firing temperatures also are related to the prevailing color of the material. The firing temperatures ranged between 700 to higher than 1000 degrees centigrade. And the highest temperatures were obtained in purple melted material. So because this result inspired us to look for other Neolithic sites and to look for similar phenomenon, we studied remains from 18 Neolithic sites from Bulgaria, from different parts of the territory, and summarize the data obtained about the firing temperatures, again obtained using the same method. And here you can see the final summarized data according to different dating periods of the different sites. And it's seen that the highest firing temperatures are obtained in sites which are dated in the early Neolithic times, with a progressive decrease in these temperatures. And I want to just to point out that these are site averaged data. So we averaged all the estimations coming from the specific site. So our hypothesis is that this pattern is due to the differences in the climate regimes during the different periods, leading to different fire weather, or the differences in the vegetation which was used as a fuel or used in the house construction. And also there is another hypothesis for intentional burning of early Neolithic houses, which can be linked to such extremely high firing temperatures. For the site of Mursalevu de Vebuas, the first site, because of the large data set, we could set some threshold of frequency-dependent susceptibility above which we obtained a clear relation with magnetic susceptibility and firing temperature, which further allowed us to estimate the proxy firing temperature across the whole site, which was very useful information for the archaeologists. Here I put several SEM pictures from the purple vitrified material, which clearly demonstrates the extremely high temperatures reached and the development of specific microstructures due to this extreme heating. So from this Neolithic burnt houses, we obtained very detailed information about the nature and properties of the fire-produced iron oxides, and they are predominantly very of nanometer grain size. And analytical estimations of the firing temperatures suggest the occurrence of extremely intense fires in most of the houses. And we also get detailed information about the degree of burning in different parts of the settlement using very simple magnetic measurements. So now I will speak shortly about the archaeological ceramics and application of mineral and rock magnetic methods. The first case study is the rock magnetic study of a collection of Neolithic pottery from a multi-level settlement near Vorbica town. This site is situated in northeastern Bulgaria. And the earliest finds of this site were dated to about 5,800 years BC. And the latest belong to the 4th to 5th century. But most of the remains are found in the Neolithic. And these are the 4 stages of the Neolithic culture Karanova, which were included in the collection of ceramics from the site. Here you can see the fragments which were included in the study. And one important characteristic of these materials is that they contain different amount of organics and sand as additions in the ceramic paste. So these additions were quantified as a range from 0 to 3 in increasing amount. And we also carried out magnetic measurements on the collection. You can see the magnetic susceptibility data. Generally, we obtained 2 groups of samples, one with relatively low susceptibility and the other with higher magnetic susceptibility. But it was found that the samples with susceptibility values in the intermediate range show very high frequency dependent susceptibility, although the percentage frequency dependence showed only a single peak in the distribution of the data. We also studied magnetic minerals which are present in the ceramics. Here you can see several examples of high temperature magnetic susceptibility curves. Generally, magnetite type mineral is dominant in the samples, but we also found small component which is related to hematite presence in almost all samples. And it was also found that samples which contained more sand additions display almost reversible thermomagnetic curves while samples containing organics addition except sand display non-reversible behavior. For this collection, we also evaluated the ancient firing temperatures, and we obtained two groups of samples, one showing firing temperatures of the order of 700 degrees, and the other showing higher values reaching 900. And here we plot the firing temperature versus magnetic susceptibility. So it's evident that the samples showing high firing temperatures are more weakly magnetic compared to the rest of the samples. And this difference turned out to be due to the fact that this sample showing lower firing temperature contained the highest amount of sand additions and organics. So this difference in the composition of the samples govern the magnetic behavior as well as the firing temperatures. So when we plot the obtained firing temperatures along the stratigraphic column, which was provided by the archaeologists, it's seen that during the first stages in Karanvu culture, the two groups of ceramics were existing at the same time with higher firing temperatures and lower. So we consider this as representing two different technological groups. And it's also interesting that such high firing temperatures are obtained only in ceramics from the Middle Ages or from the Roman period. Another case study which I would like to show is the Iron Age site called Gluhide Kamani, and this is a very interesting site with rock-cut sanctuaries. It's also situated in the Rhodops mountain, and the collection of ceramics contained 135 samples, which were all stratigraphically linked to their archaeological context, and 54 samples are coming from the kitchenware, while 81 from tableware pottery, and 11 from those are wheel-made pottery, while the others are handmade pots. So here I plot magnetic susceptibility and frequency-dependent susceptibility according to the periods of the culture when the ceramic was found. So the final calculitic is characterized by higher susceptibilities, very varying values were obtained for the early Iron Age periods, and relatively higher values were obtained for the late Iron Age ceramics. In contrast, frequency-dependent susceptibility showed lower values for the wheel-made ceramics, while for the others we obtained bigger scatter in the data. Again, magnetite was identified as the main magnetic carrier, or titanomagnetite. We also carried elemental analysis, which proved that the major element content is governed by the composition of the lithic inclusions in the ceramics, which come from the acid volcanic rocks in the near environment of the site, which was in agreement with different other analyses from the geochemistry. We also determined the ancient firing temperatures, and here I show the summarized variations in stepwise magnetic susceptibility heated to 1000 degrees. So the black shirts showed significantly stronger variations compared to the orange shirts, and wheel-made pots behave in a different way, and already from this result we can suppose that wheel-made pots are composed of different clay and different composition. And ancient firing estimates, show interesting distribution with regular evolvement of values from high temperatures at the final Chalcolithic. And during the early Iron Age, we have always two groups of samples, one with higher firing temperature and the other with lower, while in the wheel-made pots, we obtained almost only low firing temperatures. And we interpret that as the use of two different clay source materials during the early Iron Age periods, and different clay source for the introduction of wheel-made pottery. So I will come to my conclusions, and they will be more general. The first one, I hope you agree that environmental anthropomagnetism are a powerful tool for investigation of archaeological sites, and it's important to know the magnetic properties not only of fired clay and different fired structures, but also materials which were affected by natural wildfires or natural unaffected by fire soil properties, which provides a stronger background for interpretation of the data in environmental context. Then I would like to emphasize the importance of the collaboration with archaeologists, because all magnetic data should be very well contextualized, and precise stratigraphic linkage is key for reliable interpretation of the data. And of course, multi-method characterization helps for resolving non-uniqueness in interpretation. I think there is no universal recipe to create a research strategy. Each site requires specific approach, and knowing all pros and cons from previous experience helps a lot. And finally, it's important to be able to combine knowledge and expertise from different areas, from environmental, archaeoanthropomagnetism, but also geology, mineralogy, geochemistry, and so on. And this helps finding non-standard solutions and getting wider view for the interpretation. And finally, I would like to advertise the LOSFest conference, which will be held in Bulgaria in September, which is devoted to the studies of loss. And I invite you to participate in this event at the Black Sea coast. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for your nice presentation. And now, if there is any question from the audience. I can break the ice because I'm super curious, because you show that the temperature from the ceramics from the Neolithic one, well, there were I think a lot of them with temperatures around 900 degrees, if I remember well, and the other group is more around 700 degrees. And I was curious about the place or the fireplace, and if there is any difference between of them also, or the kind of production, Or do you think that could be also because of the environmental conditions that maybe can help to reach that temperatures? Because it's I think it's quite interesting that from those periods they can reach those high temperatures, like in Roman periods.
Yes, usually these very strongly burnt materials, which were found as melted material, were found in some angles of the house, also related with the wood construction. So most probably is the wood presence is connected with the creation of this environment which sustains such high temperatures.
Okay, thank you. We have one question. Give it back.
Hi. Hi, Nelly. Nice to see you. Hiya. I wanted to ask about whether you think there's an influence of the fuel on the temperature, and what kind of fuel people think were being used in these pottery firings.
Yes, when we studied different Neolithic sites where such burnt houses were found, we looked for information about the prevailing vegetation. And in most cases, it turned out that the prevailing vegetation is not broadleaf, but some spruce and such vegetations. So it's probably sustained more intense fire and producing more energy.
So I wonder, because some of our Neolithic sites, the evidence is that they're using animal dung, sheep dung as fuel, and that can get quite high temperatures.
Yes, also.
Yeah.
But, this is probably used for the construction of houses.
Yes, interesting. Thank you.
Hey, I thought I would.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just thought I'd jump in with a question as well. Thank you. I really enjoyed your talk. This is maybe a naive question. I was wondering if you could get from your sites a sense of changing use from the temperatures, right? Can you get a time element or just the different modes?
I am not sure we can get such differences because all the houses were completely burnt. So it's not possible to reconstruct where the fire started or if there is a difference in time. As I said, there are many experimental archaeology experiments to reproduce such fires. But as far as I know from the literature, such complete melting was not reached during such experiments, in spite of using a lot of fuel and adding continuously during fire.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was also just kind of thinking about, from these different temperatures, if it, just indicates, say, that an area was being used for firing pottery, and then there's that the village burnt down, and that was sort of like two stages in sort of the history of that location. Can you get a sense of that at all, or is that not available?
Well, it maybe, but the final firing destroys all the previous records, so
Fair
we
enough.
don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there is no questions, I think that thank you again, Nelly, for your nice presentation. It was really interesting. And I'm going to share just a little bit the last slide of the presentation, just to let you know that you can find all of these web seminar in the MagNetZ YouTube channel. And the next speaker would be Elisa Pispa, the 8th of April.